Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Roofball Federation of America podcast. Today we have a very special interview with Travis Demers. Travis is he'll get into it a little bit later, but he's with the Portland Trail Blazers, but also has quite the interesting history with Roofball itself. Adam, you know a lot about Travis going way back. So why don't you tell us a little bit about us before we dive right into the interview?
Yeah, it's getting kind of scary. I've known Travis now for 16 years. I started at NBC Sports Northwest, then Comcast Sportsnet Northwest, just basically the same time I did in the fall of 2007. And he was the first radio producer on our radio simulcast over there. And when I met him, I didn't even know he wanted to be an on-air guy. And so watching his trajectory from, punching buttons to get a radio show onto TV to where he is now has been pretty incredible. And my story with him is multi-layered because he was my housemate for a couple of years. We've been to each other's weddings. He had some time there where he wasn't getting a job, and he was kind of getting the like stage manager gigs and stuff with my company, just to kind of keep the electricity going at home. So I've seen him at some ebbs in his field, and then up to the point he is now. And I think that the biggest takeaway is, if in his case, at least, it doesn't work for everybody, but he just kept on doing what he was doing and then ended up in the right place at the right time, ready to go when someone handed him the ball to be the Blazers radio play-by-play announcer. And 2.5, 3 years later, here we still are, and he's still doing it.
Yeah, 100%. And he'll talk about that during the interview. But without any further ado, let's just jump right into it. Today, we have a very special guest, who I think probably gets recognized all the time from his play-to-play or play-by-play announcing on all the Roofball videos, and all that fun stuff. But I think, Travis, you might have something else that people might recognize you from. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what takes up the majority of your time?
Yeah, first of all, having a conversation with the GOAT and the founder at the same time is a thrill. This doesn't get to happen very often, so I am very honored by that. And I know you were trying to make a bit of a joke there that, oh yeah, you must get recognized for Roofball play-by-play. That happens way more than you would think. Like, I've had people recognize me that have no idea what I do for a living, but know me because of Roofball. It's pretty funny. What I do for a living is I do play-by-play, and I do it on the radio for the Portland Trail Blazers. It's a pretty good gig working in the NBA, and Roofball's not so bad either.
Awesome. I mean, that's a pretty cool job to have. I grew up, as a little kid listening to the Blazers on the radio, a few hours south of the Portland area. Didn't get them on TV that much, but the radio was always there. So that's really my love of not only the Blazers with basketball as well. So kind of an important job as well for you there.
Oh, I mean, varying degrees of importance, I guess. My wife might think I'm self-important sometimes, but I think every wife feels that way about their husband from time to time. You guys might know something a little bit about that. Maybe you don't. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So, but no, I'm very blessed to have my job, and I see it as a responsibility as much as I do anything else, because like you said, you listened growing up, whether it was Bill Schonely or Ed Doucette or Brian Wheeler. There have been some Hall of Fame broadcasters that have sat in the chair that I get to borrow right now. And I see it as a responsibility to the listeners and to the fans to keep up a certain standard.
So Travis, walk us through, how did you get from the origins of your media career to where you are now? What were the stops along the way?
Yeah, it's funny. When I first got this job, there were people that knew nothing about me, and they just assumed that I was, some nobody getting a chance, which is, it's mostly true, but it's not like I woke up on third base. I had to do a lot to get into this position. I grew up in New York. I went to college at Long Island University, Hall of Fame class of 2022, right behind me there. So thank you. So from there, I was trying to get on the air. I was producing at ABC Sports Radio and trying to get a job on the air. And my first job was at New Northwest Broadcasters in Astoria, Oregon. And I was calling games for $50 a week at 21 years old. Moved out to Oregon sight unseen. I was doing Seaside and Warrenton and Waco football and basketball. And that's kind of what got me my start. From there,
well, Travis, to be fair, I think they call that the Syracuse University Broadcasting of Northwest Oregon. So it's a hotbed. It's a hotbed.
Clearly. Yeah, and from there, I worked at 1190 KEX. I worked at 1080 The Fan. I was doing play-by-play for all kinds of things. I was hosting radio shows. Then I moved to Sirius XM in DC in 2011. I was there for a little over a year. Came back to The Fan. I'd done, before that, I was, doing Portland Lumberjacks games, the lacrosse team, and high school games. And when I came back, all kinds of other fill-in stuff. But I was hosting middays. I was doing high school football play-by-play. And then they decided to make some changes. And I was on the beach, as they say in the broadcasting world, meaning I was out of a job. And for 10 months, I didn't have a full-time job, but I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was doing horse racing, small-time high school football stuff. I was doing University of Portland baseball for free, which eventually led to doing some games on TV and radio for men's and women's basketball and baseball. Then I ended up at Rip City Radio, and I was doing an afternoon drive, doing some minor league baseball play-by-play for the Hillsborough Hops. And then one day, and there's obviously a lot of things in there, which Adam Willis was a huge help for some of those things. And we can talk more about that if you want. But really, Adam saved my bacon a couple of times, which I guess it's weird for a Jew to make a bacon reference, but there you go. So from there, I'm working at Rip City Radio. I'm doing afternoon drive. Chad Dewing's my co-host. We're having a great time. I'm the assistant program director. And I get a call from Jeff Curtin, who at the time was the Trailblazers director of broadcasting. This is in October of 2017. And I'm driving into work, and he says, hey, we need you to fill in to do the Blazers preseason game on the radio tomorrow. Do you think you can do it? And in my head, there were lots of expletives, but I'm thinking, you want me to do what? Yeah, I think I can make that work. So I did the Blazers against Maccabi Haifa that night. It was October 13th, 2017. And I treated it like it was game 7 of the NBA Finals. I didn't know if I was ever going to get another chance to get some NBA tape. So here it was. That was the only game that I did that year. The following year, my predecessor, Brian Wheeler, had some health issues. So they called me back, and I did, between the preseason, regular season, and playoffs, I did 57 games, the entire series against the Nuggets, the Western Conference Finals against the Golden State Warriors. And the following year, the following summer, they made some changes and hired me full time. And I don't know how that happened. I pinch myself every day that I get to do this, but here I am.
Now, you mentioned Adam Willis there saving your bacon.
Yeah.
Is that really just the experience, though, that you had doing Roofball? I mean, is that really what Adam Willis got you there?
Adam and I met when he came back to the Northwest from ESPN. This was in 2007, I believe. And, at the time, Comcast Sportsnet Northwest was launching. And I was trying desperately, because I was working like 17 part-time jobs, and I was trying desperately to get something full-time. And I got hired directing and producing the TV version of the Fan radio show, which basically I sat at a little desk that had a switcher that I had no experience with, and was building graphics and pushing buttons, and kind of faked my way into getting that job, but it worked. And Adam and I became close. And then one day he brings up Roofball to me. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, you got to come down and do this. I don't know how many times he mentioned it, half dozen. So finally I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's do this. And it was so much bigger than I could have possibly imagined. I thought it was just, a couple of guys screwing around at their mom's house, but it was a full production. I couldn't believe it. And from there, the rest is history. It was fun.
So now, and I don't know the story. So the first time you showed up at Roofball, was that to just play? Was that to announce? Was that to do both?
No, I think it was to play and announce. I want to say it was 2008, 2009, something like that. I was, 27, 28 years old. And look, if I'm going to be there, I'm still pre-30. So I still think I have some athletic ability, and boy, was I wrong. So I figured, I'm going to double dip on this and do both.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think you played I don't think you did announcing for our first TV tournament at the end of 2007, but yeah, I think 2008 Worlds was your first one for both. So a couple questions on that front. How difficult was it for you to compartmentalize and both play and lead announce? Because I know we still have Rob Salisky and some other people who both do the color and announcing, or color and playing, I should say. But how much more difficult is it to be hosting an event and then get up and then go play and then come back and pick up where you were hosting it?
Well, Adam, you know how seriously I take my job and the things that I do. I don't want to say that I wasn't taking it serious, because that's not fair. I was taking it serious, but it's not that serious. So if I'm taking it so seriously that I can't get up and throw a football 10 times at a roof, I've got bigger problems than figuring out whether or not I can actually do this.
Well, then
And I,
to that end, then in the recent tournaments, of course, you've been exclusively play-by-play, which, by the way, as the background executive producer, I love. But what made the determination in your mind that you were going to not be playing in these last few?
The truth is, I don't want to embarrass myself or hurt myself. You know, I've got some shoulder issues. I've had a couple surgeries. My back is a mess. And wouldn't it be great if I, dove for a ball in the bushes and then came home and told my wife, yeah, I can't watch the kids today because my back hurts from playing roofball. That wouldn't exactly fly. So it's more like marriage preservation, that kind of thing.
Well, it'd be a hell of a thing to have to tell the folks at the Blazers too. Like, I got to sit the game out tomorrow night because I got a shoulder injury from diving into a bush over at my buddy's house.
Well, they have told me that, I don't care if you're sick, you're doing this job. If you have to be quarantined in a booth somewhere, you're coming to work as long as you can physically do the job.
Fair
so
enough.
if my back is hurting, get me in there on a stretcher. I'm doing the job. So I don't think that would be the problem.
so it's more avoiding some type of vocal issue at Roofball, really.
Well, I mean, I do
Fair.
tend to go crazy sometimes. So yeah, I mean, look, I got to keep the vocal cords ready to roll.
I mean, going back to one thing you were saying just a little bit ago, as far as like the level of seriousness, I think that's one of the reasons why it resonates with people so much. It is, if you just watch the game, like there's definitely people that take it seriously. Hello. And then there's people that are just there to have fun, and a lot of people in the middle. And I think as a spectator, you're watching it and you're like, this is crazy that these guys are out here doing this. And then to have somebody who's taken over the whole announcing of it and it just plays right into it. I mean, I think all that builds the whole spectrum of Roofball.
Well, to your point, I agree. And when we were doing the game, the event with Barstool, there were a lot of Barstool watchers and listeners that hadn't seen it before and didn't quite know what we were going for. And I got a lot of, oh man, this guy's taking it way too seriously. I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of the point. It's tongue in cheek though. Like I'm taking it seriously, but it's also kind of a bit, like that I'm taking it seriously, but at the same time, we're still having fun with it. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I've always said that if, as a viewer, as a player, as an announcer, it's, taking the game seriously, trying to win, but always having a little twinkle in your eye. Like we know this is silly. We get it. So what is your, to the extent that you have a strategy or you think about it, like going into a roofball tournament, what is your mindset? How do you try to find that line and walk that line between, not flat out making fun of it, not lampooning it, because it's not what we're doing. We're not doing a comedy bit,
right?
But also making sure that there's a little bit of levity and a little bit of sort of organic nature to your delivery.
Well, I mean, I call it like I see it. It might be an excuse, but I call it like I see it. I try to describe the action as I see it, just like I do with the Trailblazers or anything else that I'm doing. But it's the conversations that really make things come to life. Whoever I'm sitting there with, whether it's any of the people that have done it, Rob, Lauren, Derek, Maddie, Dano, you, any of these guys, and I'm sure I'm leaving out like 15 people. The stuff that we talk about as it's happening, it's all reactionary, right? It's reacting to what somebody is wearing without making fun of them, or reacting to something that happens, or relating it to something else, because we all have such different life experiences that we all have really random different references that some of us absolutely get, some of us don't. And sometimes, and I do this with the Blazers too, I will make a reference to something knowing that nobody with me is going to get it, but hoping there's one person out there. It's like, ha ha, I got that. You know what I mean? So there's part of that in there too. And I just give myself a little fist pump in my mind that yes, I got that reference in there. And it's just about having a good time. That's all we're doing.
All right, let me take you back to the 2009 Roofball World Championships, which was your best career result. You finished in second place. You had a thing that day of changing jerseys throughout. So
yeah.
I have a three-part question. One is, what was the deal with you doing the going back to pass and then running forward, part one? Part two, why did you decide to do all the different jerseys? And third, how much of a hindrance was a Lumberjacks jersey in the championship game?
All right, so the first part, the whole going back to pass thing, it was about timing. I just felt awkward that day. You ever get one of those days where you just feel awkward? That's most days for me.
Oh, that's every day for me.
Yeah, so it was just like, all right, my arm feels funny. I told you I've had shoulder issues. I'm like, I'm just gonna try this out. You know, I was never a quarterback. You know, my parents never let me play football. I was a baseball player my whole life. So I'm like, you know what? This is what quarterbacks do. They get timing. I'm going to try and see if this works, even though I've never done it before in my life. And it worked out, right? I don't pretend to be a quarterback or pretend to be a football player. I'm not. You know, you can say whatever you want about that. My parents didn't let me play football. My wife probably won't let our kids play football. Doesn't mean I didn't get head injuries. And if you know me, it's pretty obvious that I've had a couple of them. But it was just something that I figured I'd try out, and it kind of worked that day. You know, I had been a jersey collector, right? I had all these jerseys. And at that point, I was in this phase of buying and selling jerseys from China, you know, and they were kind of not quite authentic, but they were close enough, right? And I had a couple of, you know, jerseys that were authentic and, you know, were really good jerseys and things like that. And I don't want to go into the details about, you know, some of the jerseys that I bought and sold, but I had a ton of them, right? So I figured, you know what, I'm just going to make this a thing today. And I don't remember all of the jerseys that I had that day. I know I had a Yankees jersey. I think I had an Archie Manning Saints jersey. I don't remember if I broke out the Warren Moon Oilers jersey that day or not, or Dan Fouts jersey. But then there was the Portland Lumberjacks jersey. So I had that because the first 2 years of the Portland Lumberjacks of the National Lacrosse League, I did their radio broadcasts. And I had done lacrosse before, but I had done outdoor lacrosse, you know, college lacrosse, NCAA, big field lacrosse. I had called games at the Carrier Dome and stuff. And nice. I was never a lacrosse guy. Where I grew up in New York, lacrosse is huge. It's bigger than football. But I wasn't a lacrosse player. I was a baseball player, and lacrosse players and baseball players, you know, kind of butted heads a bit. So I never played. But when I was in college, they wanted us to do a game. The college radio station wanted us to do a game. And there was me, who was the jack of all trades, do everything play-by-play guy. And we had one guy on our staff who played lacrosse in high school. He wasn't a sports guy, but he played lacrosse in high school. And they put him in there with me. His name was Jesse Snyder. He went by Jesse Blaze Snyder and is the son of Twisted Sisters Dee Snyder.
Wow.
And yes. He did a lot of music stuff in the radio station, as you would imagine. I think he was a VJ on MTV2 for a while. He probably doesn't remember any of that. But so we called a couple of games, and then I ended up going up to the Carrier Dome and doing a couple of games there. So I had some lacrosse in my background. I don't know why I'm going on this tangent. So I figured when this new team comes to town, I'm probably the only guy in Portland that's ever done any kind of lacrosse at all. Yep. And I knew hockey pretty well, and I knew that box lacrosse was kind of like lacrosse and hockey combined, and it worked. You know, it was really fun to do. So the first 2 years of their existence, I did that. And then the third year, they wanted me to do it for free. So I said, I'm out. Not doing that. Even at that point, I was still, you know, not going to do things for free. So they asked me to be the guy on the floor that is, you know, like running the contests and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
I have a fear of public speaking. I don't like talking in front of people. That's why I'm behind a mic or in front of a camera or things like that. But you put 3 people around and I clench up. So they give me this jersey, and it's like a hockey sweater, but it didn't fit me. It was too big, which is most things. So I walk out on the floor and I see like 11,000 people, and I'm like, what the bleep am I doing here? Anyway, that's how I got the jersey. Okay. So to your point, very short story, long. Did it hinder me? The sleeves were baggy, you know, So maybe, but I'm not going to make an excuse. I just wasn't good enough that day.
I mean, good enough to get runner-up, and I've been runner-up many times, so I think that's still a good performance.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
What's your favorite memory from Roofball? I mean, you've witnessed so much, whether this was something involving you or just something that you saw.
I don't know if there's one singular thing that was like, man, that's the coolest thing that I've ever seen. But to take it on a little bit of a broader scope, knowing where this came from and where it is now, like it's insane. Like, how is this even possible? I got a message one day from somebody, I don't even remember who it was, that texted me about it and was like, dude, is this you? And they sent me a screenshot of me on Reddit. And Back when I was, relatively clean shaven, I didn't have any gray. I had some sideburns, which I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe a little pudgier in the face. And I'm like, oh my God, this is really happening, isn't it? Like, I don't know if I wanted people to see that. And I just started getting texts and messages from people like, dude, what the hell is this? And then it just started blowing up, and to see the interest all over the country and to see all of Adam's hard work and all of this stuff come together, it's like, it's not even a fairy tale. Like it's ridiculous. Like, this is something that you would see in a movie and say, that's stupid. That would never happen. And here we are.
Well, let me just thank you for your role in it. And especially this year with all of the craziness and the extreme addition of scope to the broadcast, having a legitimate professional in that chair, especially with behind the scenes thing for Barstool, everything with prep was going great. And then right before we started, literally as we started the broadcast, our director lost the ability to talk to Travis. And with anybody else in that chair, that could have been absolutely hugely detrimental. But Travis was able, and I'm sure you had things in your past where something kind of similar to that had happened that you were able to draw from and just keep going. So thank you so much for adding that level of professionalism and sticking with it. Related to that, I wanted to ask, how often have you been reached out to online about Roofball? I know, for example, Barstool first talked to you before they talked to me. How many people have come to you as their representative when they were trying to figure out what Roofball was?
Yeah, and I think it was just because I was easy to get a hold of. You could see my face on there. You saw my name. Oh, let's see what this guy's up to. Oh, he's easy to get a hold of. He's actually a broadcaster. So yeah, there were a number of people at first. There was like a radio station in Detroit. I think you went on with them.
Yeah.
A number of other places that are like, hey, do you want to come on and talk about Roofball? Like, no, but I know who does. And it's not that I wouldn't have done it. It was like, if anybody's going to talk about Roofball, it's going to be the guy who invented the damn game and put in all the work for it. So I forwarded them your way. But yeah, I get people, not all the time, but it happens. I get more people that will recognize me for Roofball, unless I'm at a Blazer game or something, than will recognize me for doing the Blazers job.
To echo Travis Kelce, we're just glad that we can put you, analogously Taylor Swift, on the map. That Roofball is able to put you on the map.
Yeah, what's funny though is, like, I've had people reach out to me like, wow, I can't believe Roofball is what started your career. You go from Roofball to the NBA. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, that's what happened.
Sure, that's what 100%. It was. Sure. Yeah. Related to just in general with your play-by-play skills, obviously we talked a little bit about you've been on the producer side. You've been running the switcher. You've been working, bringing the audio in, changing cameras, getting everything set up. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to anyone watching. When Travis talks about his producing at the Fan, for a while there, he was running everything on his own, something that a typical TV show would use 7, 8, 9, 10 people. He was doing all of it. And during what we called mid breaks, which was radio goes on these long 6-7 minute breaks, he would put the camera on himself and host those in between segments that we did during those long radio breaks, and be punching the buttons, putting himself on the air and counting out to our commercial, doing that all himself. So I guess a long way of asking the question, how much of that producing background affects how you talk to your producers, work with your producers when you're on the air?
I appreciate the kind words. It makes me just aware that everybody's working hard, right? And you should kind of have that mindset anyway. But for radio, our staff is pretty small. We have our producer, Rich Patterson, who's down in the studio, myself, Michael Holton, who I work with, Mike Lynch, Curtis Long, Travis Clinton, those guys. And that's it. That's our entire staff for radio. So there aren't a lot of moving pieces, but I've also done enough TV. And I know that there are a lot of people working really, really hard. And no matter how frustrated I get with whatever the situation is, I know that there are fires, sometimes literal fires, happening in the truck or, wherever that stuff's going on. And it helps you be patient and understand that nobody's trying to screw up. Nobody's trying to have something wrong. Sometimes something doesn't work and it's nobody's fault, or sometimes there's just a lot of stuff going on. And I tell myself that, and I really don't get frustrated with too much that happens. I mean, I have a lot of fun on the air. If you listen to Blazers broadcasts and you listen to me and Michael, I think people understand that we just have a good time. And you know, we're not doing heart surgery. You know, we're not saving the world. We're talking about basketball. And again, I take it very seriously. I want to do a great job at my job. But when you take things too seriously, that's a you problem. And I don't want to be that guy.
You have a job now that 30 people have in the world. And if you expand out to the big four, about maybe 120 people. Now it was a long journey. There were a lot of potholes between leaving college and getting to where you are. And in terms of like having thick skin, believing in yourself, career strategy, et cetera, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's maybe just coming out of school now or early in a media career who wants to get to a job similar to yours?
I think all of those things that you said are valid. You know, having thick skin is important. I had a boss tell me one time that I had no talent and no future in this business. And then a few years later, he offered me a job at a different radio station. So it's like, okay, well, you know, I'm glad I stuck it out. I was still at that other place and he wasn't. You know, you got to be able to do everything. And in today's landscape, if the more you can do, the better chance that you can get of having a job. Right. And sometimes that job might not be the job that you want, but it can lead to the job that you want. So for me, you know, I was doing a job that I was really happy to have. I was hosting sports talk and doing kind of play-by-play on the side. But then I was in the right place at the right time and ready for the opportunity. So whatever the opportunities are, you don't know when they're going to happen. You got to be ready for them. And you might only get one chance. And you have sometimes 5 seconds to make a first impression. And you've got to be ready to go. So, you know, just do everything that you can and be ready for when that time comes, because it might happen when you're 25, it might happen when you're 35 or 45. You never know. So you got to be ready for it. And that means working hard and being prepared.
And most importantly, if your buddy says, hey, come over and do play-by-play at the sport I made up in my house, recognize that might be a career stepping stone.
Yeah, but we all thought stuff like that, right? I mean, like when I was a kid, I was 12 years old listening to WFAN, and me and my friends made a little pretend radio station in his garage. We were doing fake sports talk shows in his garage and things like that. And it's like, you know, I am lucky that I get to do exactly what I wanted to do when I was 12 years old. But you never know what's going to get you ready for that opportunity.
That's awesome, Travis. Awesome story. I'll take the opportunity here before we say goodbye and just want to say thanks for joining. But anything you'd like to say to all the Roofball listeners out there?
I was trying to think of something cheesy and cliche to say, you know, but nothing came to mind. Although I think a lot of the stuff I say is cheesy and cliche anyway. It's like whatever brings you joy, go do it, right? Because and Adam, I don't want to, like we said, I don't want to say negative things about Roofball, but people have said negative things to you about Roofball. People have said negative things to me about Roofball. Who cares? If it's something that you enjoy doing, who cares what the hell anybody else thinks? And you know what? Just because somebody tells you that's stupid, don't do that. It doesn't mean there aren't 600,000 people who aren't going to watch it on YouTube or subscribe and, you know, check all that stuff out. I mean, you're literally doing a podcast about a game that you made up in your front yard. Yeah. So like, just have fun.
I appreciate it, Travis. Adam, any parting words here? No, just thanks again, man. It's been a lot of fun doing tournaments with you this year. Thank you for everything you've done. And I'm looking forward to who knows how many tournaments between now and when I'm 85 years old and can't throw the ball anymore. So
I'm proud of you guys for putting this all in a position to be successful. It is really cool to see. Adam, I know it's your baby. Derek, we know that you're the champ of all champs. That might pain Adam a little bit to hear that, but it's awesome.
It's reality.
I really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis.